The massive ship Soul's Pride moved slowly through the dark space between stars. Inside its metal walls, 50,000 humans slept in their beds or worked at their jobs. They were all going to a new world called New Busan, where they would build farms and cities. Kyung-ho walked through the ship's biggest kitchen. Steam rose from hundreds of pots. The smell of garlic and ginger filled the air. Workers chopped vegetables and stirred bubbling soups. This was his kitchen, and he was proud of it. "Check the kimchi tanks on level 7, Kyung-ho told his helper, a young woman named So-young. "The cabbage should be ready tomorrow." So-young nodded and hurried away. Kyung-ho smiled as he watched her go. She was learning fast. In a few years, she would be a great cook. The kitchen was huge. It had to be. Feeding 50,000 people every day was not easy. There were special rooms for making noodles. Other rooms kept food cold or hot. The fermentation bays were Kyung-ho's favorite. In those rooms, bacteria turned simple vegetables into amazing flavors. Captain Daewon came into the kitchen. He was a tall man with kind eyes. "How is everything, Kyung-ho?" "Good, Captain. The people are eating well. Tomorrow we will have a feast for the children. It is the Moon Festival." Daewon smiled. "The children will love that. My daughter has been asking about your sweet rice cakes for days." Kyung-ho felt proud. Food was more than just eating. It brought families together. It made people remember home. Even in space, far from Earth, these smells and tastes kept them human. Suddenly, alarms began to ring. Red lights flashed everywhere. Daewon's face became serious. "What is happening?" Kyung-ho asked. "I don't know. I have to get to the bridge." Daewon ran out of the kitchen. Kyung-ho told his workers to keep cooking, but his hands shook as he stirred a pot of soup. Ships in space only rang alarms for very bad reasons. On the bridge, Daewon stared at the main screen. A massive alien ship blocked their path. It was black and covered with sharp points. It looked like a giant sea creature made of metal. "Sir, they are asking us to stop," said the communication officer. "A woman named Hai-jin. Send a message back. Tell them we are peaceful. We are just going to our new home." But the alien ship did not move. More ships appeared around them. Soon Soul's Pride was surrounded. "Captain," Hai-jin said with fear in her voice, "they say they are boarding us." The aliens came through the walls like ghosts. They were tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like stone. Their eyes glowed red. They did not speak. Instead, they made clicking sounds. One alien was different. He was bigger than the others and wore a black robe. When he spoke, a machine on his chest changed his words to human language. "I am Overlord Thekmor of the Vorthak Empire. Your ship now belongs to us." Daewon stepped forward. "We have done nothing wrong. We are just traveling to a new world. We know. We do not want your ship. We want something else." The alien soldiers spread through Soul's Pride. They went to every room and every floor. But they spent the longest time in the kitchens. Thekmor came to see Kyung-ho. The alien overlord stood in the middle of the kitchen and breathed deeply. His red eyes grew brighter. "What is this smell?" Thekmor asked. "It is food," Kyung-ho said. "We make it to eat." "Food?" The alien seemed confused. "Our scouts report that these organic compounds are impossible. The chemical patterns are too complex. How do you make this?" Kyung-ho did not understand why the alien cared so much about cooking. We use time and bacteria and love. Thekmore made angry clicking sounds. Show me everything, now. For the next 6 hours, the aliens studied every part of the kitchen. They looked at the fermentation tanks where kimchi bubbled slowly. They examined the spice storage rooms where thousands of different flavors waited in jars. They even studied the special ovens that could cook in zero gravity. "Sir," So Young whispered to Kyung-ho, "what do they want?" "I don't know," Kyung-ho said, but he felt sick in his stomach. The way the aliens looked at his kitchen scared him. The aliens began taking everything. They loaded the fermentation tanks onto their ships. They stole all the spices and sauces. They even took the special soil from Earth that had the right bacteria for growing vegetables. "Stop!" Kyung-ho shouted. "That kimchi has been fermenting for 3 years. You cannot just take it." But the aliens did not listen. They took the aged soy sauce that was older than Kyung-ho himself. They stole the mother yeast that his grandmother had given him. They even took the simple salt that came from Earth's oceans. The worst part came last. Thekmore pointed at Kyung-ho and his kitchen staff. "These ones know how to make the complex compounds. They come with us." "No!" Daewon shouted. "You cannot take our people." "We take what we want," Thekmore said. "That is the way of the Vorthak." Alien soldiers grabbed Kyung-ho and 20 of his best cooks. So Young tried to run, but they caught her too. They were all forced onto the alien ships. As the alien fleet prepared to leave, Daewon sent one last message to Earth. His hands shook as he typed, "They took everything, even the kimchi." The alien ships jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared. Seoul's pride was left alone in space. Its kitchens were empty. Its people were hungry. And somewhere in the galaxy, aliens who ate rocks were about to discover what human food really meant. Kyung-ho sat in an alien prison cell and looked at his hands. These hands had made food for thousands of people. They had carried on traditions that were thousands of years old. Now they belonged to creatures who did not understand that food was more than just chemicals. But Kyung-ho did not know that his stolen kimchi would start the biggest war in galactic history. He did not know that humans across the galaxy would soon be sharpening their knives for battle. All he knew was that something precious had been taken and someone would have to pay for it. The message from Seoul's Pride reached Earth 3 days later. Captain Daewon's words appeared on screens in every government building and news station across the planet. They took everything, even the kimchi. Most aliens would not understand why these words made humans so angry. But Mireille understood. She sat in her office at the Terran Culinary Preservation Institute and read the message again. Her coffee grew cold as she realized what had really been stolen. Mireille was not just any scientist. She was the keeper of humanity's food memory. In her building, thousands of cultures lived in special tanks. Some bacteria were older than human cities. Some recipes came from places on Earth that no longer existed. She called her assistant, a young man named Jun-sik. "Get me a full list of what was on Seoul's Pride. Everything, every spice, every culture, every grain of rice." Jun-sik worked for hours. When he brought the list back, Mireille's face went white. The aliens had not just stolen food, they had stolen 10,000 years of human history. "The Busan kimchi culture," she whispered. "That was the last one. The only one left from the old country before the floods." Jun-sik looked confused. "It's just bacteria, right? We can make more." Mireille looked at him sadly. "No, Jun-sik. Those Bacteria are like old friends. They have been with Korean families for hundreds of generations. Each culture is different. Each one makes its own special taste. You cannot just make new ones. They have to grow slowly, over many years. On the other side of Earth, Jinwoo packed his camera and recording equipment. He was a war reporter, but there was no war yet. Still, he could feel something building. The anger in people's voices when they talked about the stolen food was different from anything he had seen before. His first stop was New Tokyo, where the biggest Korean restaurant on Earth served 10,000 people every day. But when he arrived, the restaurant was closed. A sign on the door said, "Mourning until our food comes home." Inside, he found the owner, an old woman named Grandmother Park. She sat at an empty table with tears in her eyes. "They took our soul," she told Jinwoo. "Food is not just for the stomach. Food is memory. Food is love. Food is who we are." "But surely you can make more kimchi," Jinwoo said. "You have the recipe." Grandmother Park shook her head. "The recipe is not enough. The bacteria that make the taste, some of them lived with my family for 300 years. My great-great-grandmother brought them from Korea. Now they are gone." Jinwoo filmed her story, but he still did not understand. Not until he went home to his own apartment and opened his refrigerator. Inside was a jar of kimchi his mother had made. Suddenly, he remembered being 5 years old, helping her wash the cabbage. He remembered the smell, the way her hands moved, the songs she sang while she worked. That kimchi was not just vegetables, it was his childhood. It was his mother's love. It was the connection to all the people in his family who had made kimchi before him. Now he understood why people were so angry. Across human space, the same thing was happening. On the farming world of New Seoul, colonists held empty table ceremonies. They sat around tables with no food and talked about what had been stolen. On the mining stations near Jupiter, workers painted the names of stolen dishes on their ships. Admiral Hee-jin watched all of this from her office on Luna Base. She was in charge of the Terran Defense Fleet, but she had never seen anything like this before. Ships were arriving from every human world. Not military ships, but cargo ships, passenger ships, even small private vessels. All of them wanted the same thing. "Ma'am," her aide said, "the owners of the merchant vessel Lucky Dragon want to mount weapons on their ship. They say they want to help get the food back." "Tell them no," Hee-jin said. "But put them on the reserve list." The reserve list grew longer every hour. Farmers wanted to fight. Cooks wanted to fight. Even children sent messages saying they wanted to help. But the strangest thing was how other alien species reacted. The Centauri Trade Union sent a message saying they did not understand why humans were so upset about organic waste. The Crystal Collective offered to pay for the stolen food with rare minerals. They did not understand that you could not buy back a grandmother's recipe with money. Dr. Tae-min was a xenobiologist who studied alien cultures. He tried to explain human food culture to the Galactic Council. The meeting did not go well. "Food for humans is not just nutrition," he told the assembled aliens. "It is art, history, and family all mixed together. When you steal human food, you steal human culture." A representative of the Silicon Alliance, a race of living rocks, responded, "We consume minerals for energy. If someone took our rocks, we would simply find more rocks. Why do humans not simply make more food?" "Because," Dr. Tae-min said slowly, "some things cannot be replaced. Some things take time to grow. Some things carry the memories of people who are no longer alive." The aliens looked at each other with confusion. To them, food was fuel. The idea that eating could be art or memory or love was completely foreign. While diplomats tried to explain, regular humans got ready for war. Sung Ho was a cargo ship captain who usually carried grain between worlds. Now he was installing weapons on his ship with the help of his crew. "Captain," asked his engineer, a woman named Bo Young, "why are we doing this?" "It's just food." Sung Ho stopped working and looked at her. "Bo Young, what did you eat on your first day of school?" "Rice balls with plum filling. My mother made them. Special for me." "And when you were sick last year, what made you feel better?" "The soup recipe from my grandmother. But I don't see what—" "That soup was not just soup," Sung Ho said. "It was your grandmother's love made into something you could eat. It was medicine for your heart, not just your body. The aliens took thousands of recipes like that. They took the love that people put into food for their families." Bo Young understood now. She picked up her tools and started working on the weapons again. All across human space, the same conversation happened millions of times. People who had never thought much about food began to realize how important it really was. They remembered family dinners, special holiday meals, the taste of their mother's cooking. And they got angry. The anger was different from the usual human anger. It was deep and patient and deadly. It was the anger of people whose most sacred things had been treated like garbage. In her office, Admiral Haya Jin watched the fleet grow. She had started with 50 military ships. Now she had 5,000 ships of all kinds. More arrived every hour. Her communication officer, Commander Wu Jin, brought her the latest count. "Ma'am, we now have the largest fleet in human history, and it's still growing." "Any word from the Vorthak Empire?" she asked. "They sent one message. They offered to sell us back our food for 10,000 tons of refined metal." He-Jin was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Send a message back. Tell them we decline their offer. Tell them we will take our food back ourselves." "Ma'am, should I mention that we're coming with a fleet?" "No," He-Jin said. "Let it be a surprise." As the human fleet prepared to leave, people on Earth and all the colonies did something they had not done in decades. They came together, rich and poor, young and old, from every world and every culture, all united by the simple idea that some things were too important to lose. They were going to war over soup and kimchi and grandmother's recipes. To the aliens it seemed crazy, but to humans it made perfect sense. After all, food was not just fuel. Food was love you could taste. The human fleet moved through space, like hungry wolves following a scent. Admiral Hye Jin stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Righteous Hunger, and watched the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, aliens were playing with stolen food like children, with toys they did not understand. "Ma'am," said her science officer, Sang-min, "I'm picking up traces." Sang-min was the best tracker in human space. Before the war, he had been a quiet scientist who studied how smells moved through space. Now he was the most important person in the fleet. "What kind of traces?" Hye-Jin asked. "Soy sauce," Sang-min said, his eyes bright with excitement. "Very old soy sauce. The chemical signature is moving toward the Kepler system." Other species thought humans were crazy for tracking food across the galaxy. But Sang-min understood something the aliens did not. Human food was alive. The bacteria in kimchi, the yeast in bread, the cultures in cheese, they all left traces as they moved through space. "Set course for Kepler," Hye-Jin ordered. "And send word to the fleet. We've found their trail. The human fleet was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. There were military ships with big guns, but also cargo ships carrying spare parts for kitchens. There were hospital ships full of doctors, but also ships full of cooks and farmers. Bo Ram worked on one of the sensor ships. She had been a food safety inspector before the war. Her job was to make sure restaurants were clean. Now she used the same skills to track stolen spices across star systems. "I've got something," she called out to her captain. "Traces of fermented fish sauce about 3 days old, and wait, is that gochujang?" "Confirm the gochujang," her captain said. "If they're moving the pepper paste, they might have the whole Korean spice collection." Bo-Ram worked for hours, checking and double-checking her readings. Finally, she was sure. "Yes, sir. Gochujang, doenjang, and chamjang. The whole set." They went through the Vega system. The information went to every ship in the fleet. Slowly, like puzzle pieces coming together, the humans began to see where the aliens had gone. On the 4th day of hunting, they found their first Vorthak base. It was a small mining station on a dead planet. When the human ships arrived, the aliens tried to fight, but their weapons were built for fighting other rock-eating species, not angry humans. Lieutenant Wu Jin led the first landing team. What they found inside the base made him sick to his stomach. "Sir," he called Admiral Hyjin on his radio. "You need to see this." In the station's storage bay, the humans found barrels of aged wine being used to wash equipment. 1,000-year-old vinegar was being used to clean floors, and in the corner, thrown away like garbage, were empty jars that had once held grandmothers' special kimchi. "They don't know," Wu Jin said quietly. "They have no idea what they're destroying." But the worst discovery came in the prisoner section. 12 human cooks sat in metal cages. They were alive, but their eyes were empty. "What did they make you do?" Wu Jin asked an old cook named Master Choi. "They wanted me to make the fermented paste," Master Choi said in a broken voice. "But they gave me the wrong ingredients. They used chemicals instead of time. They used machines instead of hands. Everything I made was dead." "It's okay," Wu Jin said. "You're safe now." But Master Choi shook his head. "They made me watch them destroy my life's work, a century-old sourdough starter. They fed it to their machines because they thought it was just organic fuel. The rescued cooks were taken to the medical ships, but their bodies were not the problem. Their hearts were broken. The hunt continued. Every day, the humans found more traces. Every day, they got angrier. They discovered a Vorthak factory world where the aliens were trying to mass-produce kimchi using industrial chemicals. The result was a gray paste that smelled like death. They found a research station where Vorthak scientists were studying fermentation by killing all the bacteria and examining the dead cells. They had destroyed irreplaceable cultures just to see what they were made of. But the worst discovery came on the planet Vorthak 7. The humans arrived to find the aliens having a celebration. In the center of their city, they had built a monument out of stolen kitchen equipment. Pots and pans from Earth were melted together into a giant statue. And around the statue, the aliens had scattered the remains of destroyed food. Ancient spice collections were mixed with the dirt. Fermented sauces had been poured out like paint. "Ma'am," Sang Min reported, his voice shaking with rage, "they're using our 1,000-year-old miso paste as decoration." Commander Yunji led the assault on Vorthak 7. Her Marines fought with a fury that scared even themselves. They were not just fighting for victory. They were fighting for every grandmother's recipe, every family tradition, every meal that had ever brought people together. When the battle was over, the humans found a warehouse full of stolen Earth bacteria. Most of it was dead, killed by the aliens' ignorance, but some cultures had survived. Soon Ho was a fermentation specialist who had volunteered for the war. He worked day and night to save what he could. When he found a container of living sourdough, "Starter from San Francisco," he cried. "This is over 200 years old," he told the Marines guarding him. "It survived the San Francisco earthquake, 2 world wars, and the climate crisis. And these idiots almost killed it by storing it in a freezer." Soon Ho began the careful work of nursing the damaged cultures back to health. It was like caring for sick patients. Some were too damaged to save. Others just needed time and the right conditions. "Can you fix them all?" Yunji asked. "Some of them," Soon Ho said. "But not all. Some things once broken cannot be repaired." The news of what the humans found spread through the galaxy faster than their ships. Other species began to understand that this was not a normal war. The humans were not fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for something much more important. The aquatic collective sent a message: "We begin to understand. If someone destroyed our choral songs, we too would seek vengeance." The tree minds of Proxima wrote, "The growth songs of our ancestors are sacred to us. We would burn worlds to protect them." But the Vorthak Empire still did not understand. Overlord. Thecamore sent a message to the human fleet. "Why do you waste ships and lives for mere organic compounds? We will give you double compensation in rare metals." Admiral Hyajin's response was simple: "You cannot buy back a mother's love with money." As the human fleet got closer to Vorthak Prime, the home world of the Empire, they found more evidence of the aliens' crimes. Every world they liberated had stories of cultural destruction. The aliens had not just stolen food, they had stolen the connections that made humans human. "Ma'am," reported Jin Su, the fleet's intelligence officer, "we've tracked the main prize. The Soul's Pride's kitchen cultures, including the irreplaceable fermentation stocks, are all on Vorthak Prime." "And the cooks?" He-Jin asked. "Also on Vorthak Prime, including Master Kyung Ho." He-Jin nodded grimly. "Then that's where we end this." The human fleet gathered at the edge of the Vorthak home system. Ships from every human world floated in. Formation. Farmers and soldiers, cooks and marines, all united by simple truth. Some things were worth fighting for. "All ships," Admiral Hyajin announced, "prepare for the final battle. We're going to get our food back, and we're going to make sure this never happens again." The ships moved forward, painted with the names of stolen dishes. The Lucky Dragon carried grandmother's soup on its hull. The merchant vessel Spice Road was decorated with pictures of the peppers that had been stolen. Behind them, the rescued human cooks worked frantically to save what cultures they could. It was a race against time and ignorance. But for the first time since the theft, they had hope. They were going home, and they were bringing their recipes with them. Vorthak Prime hung in space like a gray metal ball covered in sharp spikes. As the human fleet approached, Admiral Hyajin could see the alien homeworld through her ship's main screen. Cities made of stone and metal covered the planet. No green anywhere. No farms or gardens, just endless factories eating rock and spitting out machines. "Ma'am," reported her communications officer, "the Vorthak fleet is forming up to meet us. 200 ships." "How many do we have?" Hyajin asked. 8,000 ships, ma'am, from every human world." Hyajin smiled grimly. The aliens had numbers, but the humans had something more important. They had anger, righteous, pure anger. On the planet below, Overlord Thekmor stood in his palace made of black stone. Around him, his advisors clicked and hissed in their alien language. They were worried about the approaching human fleet. "Overlord," one advisor said, "perhaps we should negotiate. The humans seem upset." Upset? Thekmor's red eyes glowed brighter. "Over organic waste? Let them come. We will crush their small ships and take their metals too." But Thekmor did not understand what he was facing. In the city around his palace, monuments made from stolen kitchen equipment gleamed in the alien sun. The Vorthak had thought they were being artistic. They had melted down pots and pans from Earth to make statues. They had mixed ancient spices with dirt to make colorful patterns on their buildings. To them, it was decoration. To the humans racing toward their world, it was the worst crime imaginable. The battle began in space above Vorthak Prime. Human ships painted with the names of stolen foods flew like angry hornets around the larger alien vessels. The merchant ship Kimchi Express, armed with mining lasers, punched holes through a Vorthak battleship. The cargo vessel Mother's Recipe used its powerful engines to ram an alien cruiser. Changsu led a squadron of converted passenger ships. Before the war, these ships had carried families on vacation. Now they carried Marines ready to fight for every grain of stolen rice. "Remember," Changsu told his pilots, "we're not here to destroy everything. We're here to get our food back. Try not to blow up anything that might have kitchen equipment in it." But the Vorthak made that difficult. Their weapons were designed to turn solid matter into dust. When they fired on human ships, they were trying to destroy the very people who had come to save their cultural heritage. The space battle was fierce but short. The Vorthak had better weapons, but the humans had better reasons to fight. Ship after ship of aliens surrendered when they realized the humans would rather die than give up. "Ma'am," reported Commander Yujin, "the orbital defenses are down. We can begin landing operations." "Good," Admiral Haijin said. "Send word to the ground teams. Find our people first, then find our food. Everything else can wait." The landing was not a battle. It was a rescue mission. Human Marines spread through the alien city like ants looking for sugar. They followed their noses and their instruments, searching for any trace of Earth food. Yunji led a team toward the largest building in the city. It was Thekmor's palace, but more importantly, it was where their sensors detected the strongest chemical signatures. "I'm reading fermented soybeans," reported her sensor operator. "And is that kimchi?" "Definitely kimchi," Yunji confirmed. "Move faster. If they've hurt our food..." Inside the palace, they found a sight that made them all stop and stare. The aliens had turned the main hall into a museum of human food. But they had done it all wrong. Precious fermentation jars were cracked open and displayed like broken pottery. Ancient sourdough starters were dried out and mounted on walls like dead flowers. 1,000-year-old vinegar had been poured into fountains as decoration. "They don't know," whispered Private Minho. "They have no idea what they're destroying." But in the deepest part of the palace, they found something that made them all cheer. A prison block where human cooks were being held, and they were alive. Kyung-ho sat in his cell, thinner than before but still strong. When he saw the human Marines, his eyes filled with tears. "Are you real?" he asked. "Or am I dreaming again?" "We're real," Yunji said as she broke open his cell. "We came to take you home." "The cultures," Kyung-ho said urgently. "Some of them are still alive, in the cold storage below, but they're dying. The aliens don't know how to care for them. Yunji immediately called for the fermentation specialists. Soon-Ho and his team rushed into the palace basement, carrying special containers and equipment. What they found was heartbreaking. Hundreds of cultures from Earth stored in conditions that were slowly killing them. Some were already dead, irreplaceable. Bacterial colonies that had taken centuries to develop, but others were still fighting to survive. "This one," Soon-Ho said, pointing to a jar of bubbling liquid. "This is the original Busan kimchi mother. It's weak, but it's alive." Working quickly, the specialists began transferring the surviving cultures to proper containers. It was like performing surgery on history itself. While the rescue teams worked, other Marines brought Overlord Thekmor to face Admiral Hyjin. The alien leader still did not understand why the humans were so angry. "You have won," Thekmor said through his translation device. "Take your organic compounds and leave our space." Admiral Hyjin stared at him for a long moment. Then she called for Tae Young, her cultural liaison officer. "Explain to him," Hyjin said, "what he really stole." Tae Young had prepared for this moment during the long journey to Vorthak Prime. She had practiced how to explain human food culture to creatures who ate rocks. "You think you stole food," she told Thekmor. "But you stole much more than that. You stole our history. You stole our memories. You stole the love that connects our families across generations." Love. Thekmor's red eyes flickered with confusion. "Love is not a material substance." "For humans it is," Tae Young said patiently. "When a human grandmother teaches her grandchild to make soup, she puts her love into the recipe. When families share meals, they share their hearts. The bacteria you stole carried the memories of 10,000 years of human culture." She showed him pictures on her tablet. Human families cooking together. Children learning to make bread from their parents. Old people sharing stories over dinner. "This kimchi," she said, pointing to a jar that Soon-Ho had rescued, "was started by a woman named Mrs. Kim 300 years ago. She was poor, but she wanted to feed her family well. She carefully tended her bacteria, keeping them alive through wars and famines and disasters. When she died, she passed the culture to her daughter. Who passed it to her daughter? Who passed it to her daughter?" Tae Young's voice grew stronger. "That jar contains 300 years of mothers loving their children, and you used it as decoration." Thekmor stared at the pictures for a long time. His advisors clicked nervously around him. "I do not understand," he finally said. "Food is fuel. Why do you attach emotional significance to biological processes?" "Because," Tae Young said sadly, "that's what makes us human." The rescue operation continued for days. Human teams searched every building on Vorthak Prime, looking for traces of stolen food. They found spices being used as paint. They found fermentation equipment being used as furniture. They found precious aged vinegars that had been mixed with industrial chemicals. But they also found survivors. Not just the human cooks, but some of the cultures, too. Soon-Ho and his team worked around the clock, nursing damaged bacteria back to health. "Can you save them all?" asked Kyung-Ho. Soon-Ho shook his head sadly. "Maybe half. The others are too damaged. Some knowledge is lost forever." It was then that Kyung-Ho made a decision that would change galactic history. "Then we make sure this never happens again," he said, "to anyone." When Admiral Hyejin heard about Kyung-Ho's plan, she called a meeting with all the human commanders and the rescued cooks. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked. "A treaty," Kyung-Ho said. Not just about human food, but about all cultural materials. Every species has things that are precious to them, things that cannot be replaced. We make it galactic law that these things are protected. Commander Yunji frowned. The Vorthak will never agree to that. They will, Kyung-ho said quietly, when they understand the alternative. Admiral Hye-jin looked around the room at her officers and the rescued cooks. These people had fought across the galaxy for fermented vegetables and soup recipes. They had proven that some things were worth any price. Draft the treaty, she ordered, and make it clear to the Vorthak. They can sign it, or they can face the consequences. As the human fleet prepared to leave Vorthak Prime, carrying their rescued people and their saved cultures, Overlord Thekmor was given a choice. Sign the treaty that would protect cultural materials across the galaxy, or watch his empire burn. Looking up at the human ships that still filled his sky, Thekmor made the only choice he could. He signed. 1 year after the signing of the Kimchi Accords, the galaxy was a different place. Namjoon sat in his new office on Haven Station, the neutral space station that had become the center of galactic diplomacy. His title was long and important. First Human Galactic Cultural Preservation Officer. But his job was simple: make sure no one ever stole anyone else's culture again. On his desk sat a small jar of kimchi. Not just any kimchi. This was made from the Busan culture that had been rescued from Vorthak Prime. It was alive again, bubbling gently, carrying on a tradition that was thousands of years old. "Sir," said his assistant, a young woman named Yuri, "the Crystalline Collective wants to file a complaint." Namjoon sighed. Every day brought new problems as different species learned to respect each other's cultures. What happened this time? The Tentacle Federation accidentally broke one of their singing crystals. They want to know if it counts as cultural destruction under the Accords. "Was it on purpose?" Namjoon asked. "No, sir. It was during a diplomatic dinner. One of the tentacle diplomats was excited about the food and waved his arms too much." Namjoon smiled. These were good problems to have. Tell them it was an accident, so no punishment. But the Federation should replace the crystal and attend cultural sensitivity training. The Kimchi Accords had changed everything. Every species now had to register their most important cultural items. The galaxy had learned that everyone had, something they considered sacred. The Silicon Alliance protected their ancient rock formations, stones that had been shaped by millions of years of careful thought. The Aquatic Collective guarded their choral songs, melodies that took centuries to grow. The tree minds cherished their growth poems, living stories told by forests over generations. And humans? Humans protected their food. Every fermentation culture, every ancient recipe, every technique passed down through families was now under galactic law. Yuri had become an expert at handling cultural disputes. She was young but smart, and she understood that most problems came from simple misunderstanding. "Sir," she said, "I have an idea for preventing more accidents." "What kind of idea?" "A restaurant," Yuri said excitedly, "here on Haven Station, where every species can learn about everyone else's culture through their food, or whatever they use instead of food." Namjoon thought about it. "That's actually brilliant. But who would run it?" The answer came from an unexpected place. Kyung-ho had become famous across the galaxy as the chef whose stolen kimchi started the biggest war in history. Now, he wanted to turn that fame into something positive. "I will cook for anyone," he told Namjoon during their meeting. "Even the Vorthak, if they want to learn." "Are you sure?" Namjoon asked. After what they did to you? Kyung-ho smiled. Food is about bringing people together. Even enemies can become friends if they share a good meal. The Interspecies Cultural Understanding restaurant opened 6 months later. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. There were dining areas filled with water for the aquatic collective, rock gardens where the Silicon Alliance could enjoy their mineral meals, climate-controlled rooms for species that needed different atmospheres, and in the center, Kyung-ho's kitchen. But this was not just a human kitchen. Kyung-ho had learned to prepare food for dozens of different species. He made crystal songs for the crystalline collective, careful arrangements of minerals that created music when touched. He grew algae poems for the aquatic collective, living pictures that changed color as they grew. The secret, Kyung-ho told his staff, is understanding that every species puts love into something. Our job is to help them share that love with others. The restaurant's most popular event was the monthly cultural exchange dinner. Species from across the galaxy would come to share their most precious traditions with each other. Dr. Tae-min, the xenobiologist who had tried to explain human food culture to the original Galactic Council, was now the restaurant's cultural consultant. He helped species understand each other's traditions. Today, he announced to a mixed crowd of humans, Vorthak, and crystalline beings, we will learn about the human tradition of comfort food. He showed them how humans made soup when they were sick, how families gathered for special meals, how recipes carried memories from person to person. One young Vorthak, barely an adult by their species standards, raised a stone-gray hand. But how does flavor carry memory? Kyung-ho smiled and brought out a bowl of simple chicken soup. Taste this, he said, and I will tell you about my grandmother. As the young Vorthak carefully sipped the soup, it was specially made to be safe for their silicon-based biology, Kyung-ho told the story of learning to cook as a child, how his grandmother's hands had guided his hands, how the smell of the dobe soup could still make him feel safe and loved, even now. I do not understand, the young Vorthak said. But the warmth is pleasant, and your voice carries emotional harmonics that suggest deep affection. That's the beginning of understanding, Kyung-ho said kindly. Not all the changes were easy. The Cultural Sanctity Corps, led by Yuri, had to handle many difficult cases. When the Tentacle Federation tried to claim that everything slimy was part of their culture, Yuri had to gently explain the difference between cultural tradition and biological necessity. When the Silicon Alliance demanded that all mining be stopped because rocks were sacred, Namjoon had to help them understand that not all rocks were culturally important, only the ones shaped by thought and time. But slowly, the galaxy learned. Species began to ask permission before touching things that might be important to others. Diplomats studied each other's cultures before meetings. Wars became less common as beings learned to see each other as people with feelings and traditions, not just obstacles or resources. The biggest change came in how different species saw humans. Before the war, most aliens had thought of humans as just another young species. Not very strong, not very smart, nothing special. Now they knew better. Humans, wrote the famous crystalline historian Resonance of Ancient Thoughts, taught us that strength is not always about weapons or technology. Sometimes strength is about caring so much for something precious that you will cross the galaxy to protect it. On the 3rd anniversary of the Kimchi Accords, Jae-hyun stood in a field on the colony world of New Jeju. He was just a farmer, but he was part of something bigger now. In his hands he held seeds that had been saved from Earth. In his soil, bacteria that had been rescued from Vorthak Prime, his daughter, little Somin, helped him plant the seeds. She was too young to remember the war, but she had grown up hearing the stories. How brave people had fought to save their food. How enemies had become friends through understanding. "Papa," she asked, "why is this dirt so special?" Jae-hyun knelt, down beside her in the rich, dark soil. "Because, So-min, this dirt carries the dreams of all the people who came before us. Every plant we grow, every meal we make, connects us to our family and our history." So-min wrinkled her nose. "It just looks like dirt to me." Jae-hyun laughed. "Maybe when you're older you'll understand, but for now, just remember, some things are worth protecting, even if they seem small." As they worked in the field, a ship passed overhead. It was one of the new Cultural Protection Fleet vessels patrolling the galaxy to make sure the accords were followed. On its hull was painted a simple message in 100 languages: "Understanding differences prevents wars." In his restaurant on Haven Station, Kyung-ho served his 10,000th customer, a nervous young Vorthak who had never tasted human food before. As he placed a bowl of simple miso soup in front of the alien, Kyung-ho thought about how far they had all come. "This soup," he told the young Vorthak, "is made from soybeans that have been fermenting for 3 years. The recipe is 500 years old. My great-grandmother made this same soup for her children during a terrible war on Earth." The Vorthak tasted carefully. "It is warm and complex. I detect 17 different chemical compounds." "Yes," Kyung-ho said patiently, "but what do you feel when you taste it?" The young alien was quiet for a moment. "I feel cared for, as if someone wanted me to be happy." Kyung-ho smiled. "Now you understand. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening every day." Beings who had once seen each other as strange or threatening were learning to see the similarities beneath the differences. Everyone had something they loved. Everyone had traditions that mattered to them. Everyone had a way of showing care for others, and it had all started with stolen kimchi. In her new office as head of the Cultural Sanctity Corps, Yuri kept a reminder on her desk. It was a simple photo of the human fleet that had fought the food wars, thousands of ships painted with the names of recipes and dishes. Below it was a quote from Admiral Hae-jin: "Never underestimate what people will fight for when they truly love something." The galaxy had learned that lesson well. Peace was not about having no differences. Peace was about respecting those differences, protecting what others held sacred, and understanding that every being had something in their heart worth defending. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, that something was delicious.